My name is Michael Anderson, and I'm not what you'd call a Rhodes Scholar. I don't have much in the way of philosophy either, but I know one thing. In this world, you have to pay as you go. Sometimes, all you have. That's a lesson I thought I learned 9 years ago during what folks in these parts call the storm of the century. But I was wrong. I only started learning during the big blow. I finished just last week.
Welcome to Now Playing's review of Storm of the Century.
This is gonna be one bad mother of a storm.
Part of the Now Playing Stephen King movie series.
This is a bunch of foolishness as far as I'm concerned.
Hosted by Arnie.
I don't think he's human.
Neither do I. I don't know what he is.
Stuart.
Oh, I imagine he don't have any problem in the juice department.
And Jakob.
I think he's crazy.
These podcasts contain detailed plot spoilers and harsh language.
What's the matter, Ursula? All this a little too much for you, dear?
Listener discretion is advised.
All right, let's go if we're going!
Today we're discussing Storm of the Century, starring Tim Daly, Colm Feore, Deborah Ferrantino, directed by Craig R. Baxley. This is the Now Playing co-host Born in Sin, so I'll come on in and tell you my name is Arnie.
Can you tell me what that means while you're at it? This is Stuart.
And this is the co-host with no problem in the juice department, Jakob. That old lady is so gross. Like, we're discussing those X and Pearl and Maxine films. She feels like something out of that.
Welcome back again to the Stephen King universe. Kind of excited to discuss Storm of the Century for two reasons. The first is I've never seen Storm of the Century. I don't remember hearing about it when it came out, so there's reason to be optimistic. I haven't had negative experiences with this before. My second reason to be excited is I didn't have to read an 800-page book in preparation for this podcast, as this is what Stephen King calls a novel for television, otherwise known as a screenplay.
Well, last time he tried that, it was Golden Years, so that could be a very, very bad thing.
Well, even that was a TV show. I go back to Sleepwalkers as the last real attempt.
But let's just put it in reference, because we've talked a lot about Stephen King network miniseries. This is number 6. He started the 90s with It and The Stand. That, I would say, are high marks for him, even though I personally didn't think they were that great. But after that, we've had Langoliers, Tommyknockers, Shining remake, and now this is closing out the 90s. This is coming out February 1999. Meanwhile, I think King has gotten more dramatic at the movie theaters. If you think about Misery, Shawshank, Dolores Claiborne, Green Mile, Oscar caliber. If you want to see the good King, you go to theaters. You want to stay home, you get what you get. But this one did have good critical buzz. I know fans have considered this one of the better King projects.
That's not hard to believe. I mean, this bar is very low at this point.
But the ratings were pretty good. I think he pulled in about 19 million people every night.
Yeah, this is a love story. I looked at when this aired 3 nights in a row starting Valentine's Day.
And we may not have liked the output from Stephen King's ABC miniseries After the Stand, but ABC was very happy with the ratings that were being brought in because they told Stephen King, do whatever you want next. Carte blanche. Pick anything you've done. We'll make that as the next miniseries. And he went back to them and said, how about something I haven't done? And came up with the idea. He liked this thought because, A, people wouldn't know how it ended. With a lot of his books, if you're a reader, you already know the ending before the movie starts. And so he feels like it would be nice to have something where people are truly in suspense during it. And the second thing is, all of his movies get compared to the books and say, oh, I like the book better because it does this, or I like the movie better because it does that. And he wanted something that would just stand on its own cinematically.
I'm more intrigued by the fact that we're getting a different director behind the camera. He wanted Mick Garris, and Mick Garris, I guess, said no.
How would he say no? Like, his schedule wasn't full. Like, he must have had a doctor's appointment he couldn't get out of or something.
Maybe he just didn't enjoy doing The Shining or the fallout from The Shining. It's hard to say, but he was unavailable, and they had to go with somebody who really didn't have a huge, I don't think, name brand recognition.
I was shocked when I looked up Craig Baxley, the director for this, because I associate him with an action film called Stone Cold. It is starring a football player. It is one of the best 80s action films out there. Like, it may outdo anything that Arnold or Stallone ever output in the 80s. I was shocked that you're getting this guy. I don't know about any of his other films, but bringing him to do horror, I'm assuming, with Stephen King.
Yeah, action is what he had done. He had done Action Jackson with Carl Weathers, and he got dolphed. I come in peace, and he went in pieces.
Yeah, I've seen both of those films. When I was listening to the 4.5-hour commentary of the director and Stephen King that came on the DVD with this, he talked about how he was second unit on Predator and really had been pigeonholed as an action director, and he was in talks to do another action film when the call came and said Stephen King would like to talk to you about Storm of the Century, and then he became Mick Garris Jr., because we'll be talking about him again. He did Rose Red, another TV project, then another one after that, The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, and then he was involved in the series Kingdom Hospital that Stephen King did. So he went away from action and into being Stephen King's go-to guy.
I mean, let's not say he's Mick Garris yet. I got to see the quality of this guy's film compared to Garris's.
And Mick Garris would continue to make King projects, some we haven't talked about, and some, like Desperation, we have. But again, I welcome a new creative talent behind the camera, particularly if you're telling me Stephen King has a lot of creative control. I don't trust that man to make movies, and I've got lots of good reasons, starting with Maximum Overdrive, to believe in that.
Well, he is a producer of this as well, a hands-on producer of this. But honestly, you're excited for somebody new behind the camera, but it's the guy who made I Come in Peace. Does that really give you hope?
Yeah, I mean, it does, because I know what Mick Garris would do. I know how garish and over-the-top and awful that would be. So anybody, yes. Would I have run to this man? No, I would not have. But anybody other than Mick Garris, what is it going to look like on television at a time when hopefully the censors have loosened up? 1999 was different than 1990. Am I optimistic? Mostly what buoyed me was the knowledge that fans really like this one, that when they talk about favorite Stephen King, sometimes this gets mentioned. It did get published, Arnie. I hear you say it is not a book you can read.
I was going to ask, is there a novelization of this series?
No, there is a published screenplay with a foreword by Stephen King. He wrote it before the series was put together, but he was very excited, or at least that was how he was going to pitch. I guess you don't shit talk your own movie if it's getting published as a screenplay, but he really was excited about this and the creative direction and anticipated that what was on the page was going to be what we would see on screen.
So are you saying, like, he wrote this, just happened to have this thing for 3 nights, and ABC's like, yeah, give us whatever you want, we'll make it 3 nights. Was it planned this way?
It was planned that he would write an original screenplay. He came up with the idea, he talked about it in the commentary, that it was during a snowstorm, and he had the thought, what if I didn't write a book, but I took this story and adapted it to a screenplay? And yeah, he knew the cadence of it, which he described as 7 acts per night, 3 nights, each act being between a commercial break that needs to have its own little stinger so that you don't change the channel during the commercials, and then something at the end of the night to bring you back on the next night. That's how he wrote this. I'm sure that if ABC hadn't said do whatever you want, he probably would have made this into, what, a 1,200-page tome?
Possibly, yes. 375 pages, a whole lot better than some of the size of these novels I'm reading.
But he has called this in the past his favorite screen representation of his work. I won't call it an adaptation, but his favorite screen representation. I love that on the commentary, he talks about how he doesn't like Kubrick's The Shining. He will die on that hill.
I could tell, I knew he wrote this for the screen. The fact that we're going to have inanimate animals coming to life, I'm like, you will never let that go, that Kubrick took that away from you.
Yeah, and that's sort of getting into, yes, ABC greenlit this, carte blanche, you say. $33 million was the production budget for 6 hours of television. Is not rolling in it. I will just say, a very expensive TV miniseries, sure, but maybe not what this production needed.
Yeah, the director was pretty frank about that on the commentary, about things he would have liked to have done, but the money just wouldn't stretch that far, and how literally sometimes they're walking through mashed potatoes instead of snow because that's what was required.
I mean, that's going to explain a particular Superman scene where I'm like, this should not be in the film if this is how it's going to look.
I know CGI wasn't at its best even in 1999, but when we get to Doggy Cane...
Yeah, just don't put it in.
But let's talk about Doggy Cane. Let's talk about it all. Arnie, give us the plot.
On the eve of the worst snowstorm in history, a dark man comes to the small island of Little Tall Island in Maine. That man is Andre Linoge, played by Colm Feore. Once in town, he immediately kills a local old lady, then sits and waits to be arrested, which he soon is by town constable and grocery store owner Mike Anderson, played by Tim Daly. Linoge is a mystery, having no ID and telling nothing about himself, but he seems to know the darkest secrets of all the residents of Little Tall Island. He also seems to have psychic powers as, from his jail cell, he causes 2 townies to commit suicide. Then he causes a 3rd townie, named Kat, to kill her cheating boyfriend. Linoge also keeps having people write the message, "Give me what I want and I'll go away." Then Linoge easily escapes from his cell. As the snowstorm hits the town, all the residents take shelter in City Hall. But Linoge causes 3 of them to disappear into the snow. Only one returns, frightened, and saying they should give Linoge what he wants. Linoge calls together a town meeting and finally states his demand. He's an old being of great power, but he is dying. He wants a child to carry on his legacy, and he wants the town to give him one of their 8 children that live on the island. If they do that, he will leave. If they don't, he'll kill everyone on the island, including the children. The town debates the issue, and everyone is for it except for Constable Mike, who is father to young Ralphie. But even Mike's wife Molly, played by Deborah Ferrantino, thinks they should go along with Linoge's plan. Mike has to be physically restrained by the townies, but they agree to Linoge's terms. The parents of the 8 children draw stones from a bag to decide which child to be taken, and it's Ralphie. Again, Mike must be restrained, and even Molly is thrown across the room by Linoge as the mysterious, magical, evil man takes the boy out into the night. And we jump 9 years later. Mike has divorced Molly and moved to San Francisco, where he's a U.S. Marshal. He's left the town behind, though he keeps up with some of the town events. Several of the town members committed suicide or died under mysterious circumstances. But one day in Chinatown, Mike sees a boy on the streets. He knows it's Ralphie. He calls out to the boy, who bears the evil fanged teeth that were a trademark of Linoge. Mike chases after Ralphie, but loses him in the streets as credits roll.
As we get started, who is leading this miniseries? Not Steven Weber. You may watch Wings, you may just assume, but did he just not want to come back for the abuse he took for The Shining?
I had to look up. I'm like, Tim Daly, that name sounds super familiar. I'm like, oh, it's the other brother from Wings that I don't remember because he wasn't the funny one. But I don't want Steven Weber. Like, Steven Weber should be on Wings. He should be on a sitcom. I don't want him in Stephen King's scary horror films.
Yeah, we've seen way too much of Steven Weber to the point that I got confused and thought this was another one starring Steven Weber. No, it's his Wings co-star Tim Daly, who was the straight man on Wings. It must eat Steven Weber alive because I heard on the commentary that before they went to Weber, Mick Garris and Stephen King brought in Tim Daly to see if he wanted to play Jack Torrance in the Shining miniseries. And like so many other actors before him, Daly said, I don't want to stand in the shadow of Jack Nicholson and try to follow up that performance.
a TV star. You stand in someone's shadow. It would be a nice paycheck.
I'll go ahead and say I would rather have Tim Daly than Steven Weber in that Shining. And I don't know Wings. I don't know Tim Daly. But I can just say, watching this movie, he's just more natural at ease. He doesn't mug the way that I think of Steven Weber.
He was not the funny one. Yeah, he was the straight one, as Arnie called out.
I'll give Tim Daly a compliment right off the top, though. I have seen every episode of Wings, and I recently did a rewatch of the first few seasons. I never once thought of Wings while watching this series. I thought of Tim Daly as Mike Anderson, and he made me forget that sitcom for the 4.5 hours that I watched Storm of the Century.
To be fair, I thought of that of everyone in this cast because I don't know anyone. Usually these TV, again, Matt Frewer, like he's a regular in these King TV adaptations. None of those people are here. Again, a lot of TV credit stuff I'm not familiar with when I looked up these other actors.
$33 million is not going to even get you
a Matt Frewer.
Yeah, that is the truth. I mean, the Shining budget was bigger and maybe that was more illustrious. You want to be in a known quantity. What is Storm of the Century? Now, of course, it's Stephen King's Storm of the Century in all the ads, but an original is a harder sell, always. What I can say is that Tim Daly is a very solid presence. I think he brings a natural everyman quality to this. He sets the stage in opening voiceover, but he says things that have me asking, even when the 4.5 hours are over, what is this story about? What I hear him say is, you have to pay as you go, sometimes all you have. Which to me tells me this is a story about a man that loses everything.
Yeah, and I think he does.
Really? I want to put a pin in that, because I don't see that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like he loses everything by the end. The line that stuck out to me is, we're keeping secrets. And I thought, definitely secrets and town gossip getting out is going to be a thing when Andre Leno shows up, but that is not what this is about either, surprisingly.
And what he says is very specifically, what we're about to watch happened 9 years ago. 1989, I lived on this island off Maine, and now I live in another place, we'll find out San Francisco, and I didn't fully learn this lesson until what happened to me in San Francisco. So that, again, I am to understand this is the story about a man who never recovers from what he experiences during this cataclysmic storm in 1989.
To be honest, I wrote down his entire opening monologue, and I watched it a couple of times so I could get it word for word. And by the end of the monologue, I'm viewing this as kind of word salad. It is hard to get a lot of meaning out of it, and he'll repeat basically the same monologue at the end of the film, and I'm still questioning some of what he meant. He says, I grew up in Maine, but in a way, I never really lived in Maine. What does that mean?
I was going to ask you that.
I got that one. They aren't mainlanders. They are islanders. And so the culture of living on, even though it's only 2 miles off the coast of Maine, the fact that they live on an island and have to take a ferry in order to interact with everyone else from Maine means they're really not like the people from Maine. I think that's what we're to understand. Another thing I hear, and this is jumping ahead a little into the story, what I really think this story is, if I had to guess what Stephen King really was trying to do, this is an interpretation of the story of Job.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
If you think about persecution, why does God punish good people? This is a man that believes he was good and was forced to give up. It cost him everything for being good. Why is that? That is, I suppose, the philosophical question that these 3 knights are to ask.
Yeah, they'll put a pin on that later when they just call out Job.
Yeah, right. They literally call out Job in a Stephen Kingish, plain-spoken way. And I think we are to hold on to that. I think that we see this man in his very early scenes. He is both a grocery store owner and a policeman of sorts, a constable.
And a deacon of the church.
He is someone that is very well connected with everyone here, very well respected. He only makes $6,000 for this job of constable. but he is the one that is going to decide the laws, or at least so he thinks.
I watched this twice, once with the commentary. I didn't get that he was the deacon. I think there's a preacher he's going to spar with.
No, they call it out early on that he's also the deacon.
Oh, wow. This guy wears many hats, but I guess you have to because he's also going to mention he only makes $6,000 a year for being constable, and you're not going to feed a wife and child on $6,000 a year.
Yeah, he's doing it because he loves this community. And that's why it's going to hurt so bad that this community, in his view, betrays him. What I ask is there anything about him? We will see this community stripped, as they want to do. Stephen King always loves to take a small town and expose it as a ring of pedophiles and rapists, and the worst of human society lives underneath the happy surface. I heard the guy cheated on a test, and when I watched from this opening, I don't see any flaws.
Yeah, is that his deepest, darkest secret, that he cheated on a test in college? Because, look, I cheated on tests in college. Like, I got way deeper secrets than that. If that's the worst this guy is, I guess he is a Job, because that's nothing.
I get tricked. Early on, we have this woman, Kat, who's, I think she's working the grocery store. She's on the intercom system at the checkout, maybe. And she calls to Mike and is like, your wife's on the phone. And the way that she looks at him, I think, they're having an affair. But this guy has no skeletons in his closet. They're not having an affair.
Except that chest he cheated on.
Again, it's very strange to me that this is a story about exposing people's sins, and this is a man with none.
It goes back to my problem with a lot of Stephen King fiction, is that his heroes in stories are bland everymen. And it seems like he can't get away from that. They're often wearing a blue chambray, I think is how you pronounce it. And it's just, they're always so capital G good. They're always wanting to do the right thing. Something that was said on the commentary, I think it was by King, not the director, is that humans are innately good. When you find a wallet on the street, your first impulse isn't to take the money. Your first impulse is to find the owner of the wallet and give it back to them.
I'm a bad person.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a second. This is the main character he writes again and again, is someone who wouldn't steal the money from a found wallet, and I just find them to be flat main characters. It's always the characters around them that are really interesting and fleshed out in my mind.
And I guess in defense, like, if you know the story of Job, like, he was a pretty perfect dude. That's why he was put to the test by God and Satan, the way they had that deal to test him out. So if that's the reason, okay, but it doesn't make interesting, dramatic television. I want a flawed character. I don't want a perfect one.
And how imbalanced that everyone around him has the absolute worst, like going out at night and beating up gay people or something. Really? It just seems like Stephen King sees things in very extreme black and white. There are good people and there are bad people. And I think that might be why I always struggle with his writing as an adult, is that there is little nuance. This is essentially The Stand, right? A Randall Flagg is going to come into this community and expose most of them, I think, as being, they would have partied hard in Las Vegas if Captain Trips started spreading. But this is a good man in a town full of bad people.
You say The Stand. To me, this is a story that I've seen Stephen King do again and again. My go-tos for it are Salem's Lot and Under the Dome and The Mist a little bit, where you have people sequestered in a place due to weather and then the people turn on each other. And all of these entire small town stories that he writes, where yes, there's so much debauchery going on in that town that gets uncovered when an emergency hits. Which is why, just to jump ahead, the ending of this shocked me to hell, because so much of this feels like rote Stephen King that I've read before, that we've watched before, that I felt like I knew how this was going to end, and it didn't.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And I'll also share, the band's been writing for 25 years. It's hard to surprise readers, right? I mean, he is a brand. That's why he is being given $33 million to make a TV miniseries. People know what to expect from Stephen King, and they should expect an evil man again, you talk about small towns, maybe it's Pennywise. Maybe it's whoever Max von Sydow was that opened up the antique shop in Needful Things. Yes, someone comes into these communities, vampires in Salem's Lot. They come in and they show these people for who they really are.
I really, coming in with something called Storm of the Century, expected it to be a lot like Under the Dome or The Mist, where something caused the people to turn on each other a lot more than we have here. I didn't expect the way this opens with a homicide. I didn't expect an Andre Linoge, Satan type of character, a Randall Flagg type in this story.
I'll be honest with you. You call it Storm of the Century. I'm expecting the storm to be the star. And it is, I just want to share, if you think about the entertainment that was playing in movie theaters, we were very accustomed to watching meteors fall on, destroy the world, volcanoes erupt. We'll be talking about Twister very soon. That was a decade where they really repopularized the disaster film. I thought this would and probably should be more of a perfect storm kind of situation where cold, hurricane winds, what have you, is really decimating a community.
I really thought, because I didn't read up on what this was before I turned it on, going by the title and just what I'm seeing, I'm like, okay, this is going to be this small community that has to get snowed in because of this storm, and they're going to turn on each other for whatever reason. Paranoia, maybe something supernatural. I did not expect a serial killer to come walking into town to kick off everything.
What I hear about the storm is, I think I get this, there's two fronts. There's something coming through the Midwest and then out the east, and then something's coming in from the Atlantic Ocean. And this is the storm of the century because it's two storms merging into one. And it's more or less at the eye of this storm is this little tiny Maine village that just is not equipped, not prepared.
And this did come out before The Perfect Storm, which was 3 storms merging together.
Storm of the Century is 2, Perfect is 3. Okay.
Born in lust, turned to dust. Born in sin, come on in. I Googled it because I'm like, is this a quote? Everything came up and said Storm of the Century in my search engine. So I think this is a Stephen King truism. I guess I'll use that word. I don't know what it means.
The thing that made me do some puzzle word searches was when I heard Andre Linoge. I'm like, okay, that's some version of the devil, I'm sure. Like, that was just my assumption. How do I mix these letters up? That's actually going to happen later on in this series.
Did you figure it out?
No, I didn't figure out Legion.
Yeah, me either, but I don't think you have to. I mean, it's pretty obvious. This character, even Hannibal Lecter has some charm before he eats your liver with fava beans. And this guy is doing glint-eyed killer from the get-go. He walks up to an old lady's house with a cane, rings her bell, and then beats her until her eyes fall out.
Which, this is on ABC, so when you say her eyes fall out, that's what we're told.
Yeah, where did you see that?
I read it in the screenplay. And Stephen King does talk in the preface that it has always been a challenge getting his vision onto network television in the 90s.
Yeah, he said in the commentary he wanted blood to be splattering the screen and things in his vision, but he knew he was making this for ABC, and so he was surprised he was able to get as much on screen as he was.
Just jumping ahead to the end, why is he doing this? If this man is who he claims to be, a dying creature that needs an heir, why beat an old woman until her eyes pop out?
I asked the same question in my notes to myself, I guess, when I was watching this, especially once we get to episode 2, where he just keeps killing people, and I don't know why. Like, I get it this first time. You kill someone so you get arrested, so you can confront the town.
Get a reputation.
Yeah, I get why, like, you do a couple of these supernatural murders so people, like, understand you have powers, but I don't need an extra 90 minutes in night 2 of it.
Well, even forget the time that it takes, because I think the story could be told in 2 hours. You could kill all, I've seen a slasher movie, and you don't have 20 minutes go between kills. But if the point is I have to kill some people in order to make this community believe what I say when I make my offer, I just don't know that he has to do it as much as he does. I feel like 2/3 of this story will be a very slow-paced slasher, and then the man that gets revealed, that take off the hockey mask, and Jason is just an old dude that is looking for a son. It's a strange turn of events. It's a strange pairing of sort of a philosophical quandary with, I guess, blood and guts murder.
Yeah, we're on the same page, Stuart. Let's call it a night. We're done.
Yeah, I agree too. This opening, it's a grabber to get me into the series. When you think about it, it makes no sense for him to go in and kill this old lady out of all the people in the town.
He's gonna keep talking about secrets. So I'm like, there's gotta be like some like town conspiracy, and he's punishing those that are like the most culpable for like whatever crime was committed. I don't know what this old lady would have done.
She is a piano teacher, so I know she abused kids.
True, I took piano lessons, yes.
But born in lust? She's born in lust? This woman does not look very lustful as she's creeping up to the door with her walker. And we never find out a secret. I think you killed the oldest person there to show that you're heartless, right? I'll kill anybody. It doesn't matter if they're a sweet old lady. I'm that guy. And again, reputation is good. I feel like that's all you had to do to get everyone's attention, particularly in a community where they don't even have a jail cell. Little Tall Island doesn't have a jail cell because there is no crime here.
And I don't know if you guys remember Little Tall Island, but this was the setting for Dolores Claiborne. It did take place on this island.
Yeah, they're going to call out Dolores Claiborne later. I didn't realize it was the same island.
Yeah, you don't have to remember it because they're going to just put, it's actually in the script. They put it in 3 times. And the editor/director wisely thought, maybe we'll do it once. Dolores was not one of his bigger hits.
And if you follow the timeline of Dolores Claiborne, she was living on the island in 1989. Because remember, a lot of that story took place in flashback too. So she's somewhere around here, and her secret of murder is not being exposed by Linoge.
No. Again, like I said, it's just a cold-blooded move to kill a sweet old lady. And again, if you are here for the reasons that he says he's here, and he is not lying, he will leave with the thing that he wants and not betray any of these people's confidence. I don't know what this is all about.
Yeah, he keeps saying, just give me what I want and everything's going to be cool. They ask him a few times, like, what do you want? Like, no, we have to stay all 3 nights to find out what he wants. He's going to tell us on his own time. That's why I asked, was this developed as a 3-night thing? Because this could have been a 4-night, 5-night, 2-night, 1-night. Like, it could have been expanded or cut however you need it. Because it's up to Linoge to tell us what he wants.
Well, just thinking in terms of logic, sweeps, and what have you, ABC is not going to invest in 1 night of ratings. 3 nights feels like a good investment for $33 million. But this aired on a Sunday night, a Monday night, and a Thursday night, which I'll just have you know in the 90s, you're going up against Friends and
Simpsons used to be on there. Cosby used to be, like, Cheers. It was always a big night.
But yes, okay. Woman is dead, and we have a series of people discover her. First, a teenager just kind of talking smack and playing basketball. Obviously not very bright. If a giant storm is coming in and he's outside throwing hoops. But he wanders in, gets the idea that she's dead, brings it to the town, and we have, I guess, our contemptible foil for Tim Daly. The constable is the good guy, and the town manager is this guy named Robbie that seems to have no good qualities. As good as Tim Daly is, this guy is rotten.
He's doing whores while his mother's dying. I gotta say something. I don't know if this is an island thing or a Maine thing, but everyone here ages horribly. They all look like they're in their 50s, and yet they have small children. They all look way too old to have small children, but apparently that is the situation in Little Tall.
There's only 8 children on the whole island.
And yet all their parents look 60, except for Tim Daly.
But I heard one thing, though. I heard that there's a bunch of children that go to school on the mainland, and they're not bringing them over. They're keeping them there. This is not the full island. There's only 200 of the 400 population being impacted.
Yeah, I thought it said, like, those 200 went to the mainland for safety. They were the smart ones.
And a lot of the kids. Again, because shooting kids is tricky. And, this is a very big cast. It's not a well-known cast, but there are over 30 speaking roles.
Over 70.
I'm surprised the network let him do that because, yeah, you got to pay all those people now.
Apparently that was part of what he wanted to do. Stephen King talked about he really wanted to spend the time to create a whole town. Sorry, Stephen, I really can't tell you who most of these people are.
That was another expectation of mine. If this is about a small town, the first, at least act of the first night is setting all these townies up so I know them intimately. Like, as I go through this whole series, I'm like, okay, who was that again? Let me check my note. Like, Ursula, I remember, and I think that's it.
Yeah, Robbie you will pay attention to. Robbie is the one who, yes, he goes in there and the guy's watching Stephen King on TV, even though he broke the TV set. Ooh, scary. He threw the basketball at the TV set.
He's a attorney who's going to get you your $10,000 for whatever happened to you.
Ambulance chaser. That's not even a lawyer.
There's also these Punishments of God VHS tapes that they're advertising, and I would 100% buy those.
That does feel like something like bum fights were advertised in the same way. Yes, get a VHS of something you shouldn't be watching.
Tornadoes and floods just killing people.
There's something that, yes, like your darker nature wants to get a hold of. But yeah, so this is where we learn that this guy, I have to believe, right? This is a truth teller. Even if we find this Andre Lenoge grotesque and devilish, every time he calls out people, I believe him. This man was sleeping with a whore in Boston while his mother was choking and calling out for him.
How do you call out for someone when you're choking?
Badly. I believe.
I mean, he wouldn't even known she was calling out for him. Yeah, from the sound of it, even if he was there.
Right. And then she'll be a cannibal in hell, eating out his eyes because, and I love this one, hell is repetition. Oh boy. I talked about this when we talked about Green Mile. When Stephen King finds a catchphrase, it was really apparent to me because I listened to Green Mile as an audiobook. And that narrator had to go again and again, coffee, not spelled like the drink. And here, I don't know how many times we are treated to, I'm a little teapot and give me what I want and I'll go away.
It sounds like you are in hell because of the repetition, Stuart. It's successful. Stephen
King loves repetition. What is this hell is repetition? Stephen King books would be hundreds of pages shorter if he could only use a catchphrase 3 times.
I just wish that catchphrase would have paid off some way.
But it is nice to know hell is office work, because office work is repetition. And so when we go to hell, we'll each have our own little cubicles.
Well, again, we will revisit this because I believe these 3 nights, yes, we'll make themes out of things that I don't find much meaning to. Jacob, I hear you saying you don't know why I'm a little teapot. I've got real questions as to why that would terrify anyone.
And I do want to say, like, the first 2 nights, I'm like, okay, this is all building up to something. My reaction is coming because it does not build up to anything.
The funny thing is, there's so much that Stephen King writes that I think on the page, it kind of works sometimes. But then when you put it on the screen, it just looks silly. And here with the I'm a little teapot, it doesn't have a page that you could even imagine it working on. It just has the screen where it's silly.
I mean, I know I've called that out with Stephen King before. I'm like, maybe this works on the page, but you can't say it on the screen. Yeah, this little teapot, like, just over and over. This is the true hell, having little kids sing the song to you repeatedly.
Again, I just want, he's humming it here while he's watching the TV, and we will hear it again and again.
Is it because he's spilling secrets? That's what's coming out of his spout?
He is drinking her tea, so it's relevant in this scene. I just killed an old lady, and now I'm singing I'm a little teapot as I finish her cuppa. But I don't know why, for 2 more nights, every other character is going to be treated to this song.
Like, why they're murdering people, they will be singing this song.
Yeah, and collapsing into doggy comas. I don't know.
There was this thing in the 90s where they tried to make old music scary. We've talked about it. Was it In Dreams that tried to use Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree?
Mm-hmm. Time is on my side and fallen. They do it now. That's a classic move. Take a children's theme, because that's innocence, and then put it in a minor key, and now we're terrified. But I'm a little teapot. Again, if I were trying to concoct something to scare people, what is terrifying about that?
I mean, he could have created a context. I don't know, you take this old lady who he's murdered and, like, make her look like a teapot or something, break her bones, contort her, and so then you associate that song with this horrific image or something. Like, there's a way to make that work, but they do not make it work in this.
Even that's questionable, Jacob, but I know what you mean, yes.
I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, I get you. I would rather have her bent up like a teapot so that we could understand when he sings that he is trying to remind people of the violence that he can convey. To me, it just becomes a very silly non sequitur.
I mean, it comes back around in night 3 when all the kids are singing it. You make sense for kids to sing it, but here at the beginning, the old lady was drinking tea, so I guess that's what we have to go on. It's just very free association.
I mean, if she was having a Kit Kat, would he have broken out in the Kit Kat jingle?
Speaking of which, when he finishes this, first commercial break, we get some red eyes and we hear him hiss and show us some teeth. He's a sleepwalker, right? He's a cat man.
I took that as snake teeth.
I went to Salem's Lot. I was thinking vampire.
Maybe vampire, maybe sleepwalker. There's so much biblical allusions. Maybe he is the snake from the Garden of Eden that's always been around tempting people. Maybe you could make that case. I don't really understand this guy. I will just say later he'll be explained away as Legion.
That only makes it more confusing if you know the story of Legion.
Yeah, I barely know it, and I don't feel like it amplifies my reading of what's going on with this character and why he's here. Again, let me just boil it down. Linoge is every, 300 years grabbing a new apprentice because he did this in Roanoke?
Yeah, he can live a very long time, but not forever. And yeah, it's implied that he came from Roanoke.
No, but that whole town disappeared, so I thought that meant he didn't get a kid from there. I mean, that was the threat. Give me one kid or everyone disappears, and that town disappeared. So that was a failed attempt.
Okay, and so it's taken him 300 years to find another island.
Sure, for reasons. Again, he experiences time difference, so maybe he just got lost skipping stones in the ocean as he crossed over to this island. I don't know, but he's taken a long time.
Which brings up another point. Why would you need a kid? If you're going to live forever, you can be an adult, you can be the old lady. He could have grabbed this old lady and said, you're going to live 300 more years and learn everything that I know.
But children are more impressionable. He wants one that's going to call him father and take over. But we're not going to find any of this out until night 3. We've got a lot of movie to go through before we even find out he wants a kid.
We got 4 hours to go.
I don't know that we do. To me, I'm trying to skip to the end because I feel like a lot of what happens in the middle is filler. And I will just go ahead and restate, I find that the first 2 nights are a very slow-paced slasher that has almost nothing to do with the central question of the third night.
I agree. There's so much with this Andre Linoge that I expected him to have grander designs because he seems omnipotent. There seems like nothing he can't do. He is so confident when he's arrested by Mike that he could break out of those handcuffs anytime he wants. He says to Mike's son, the son asks, why are you wearing those handcuffs? And he's like, because I choose to. He could break out at any time. He could do anything he wants. He wants to go to jail for reasons.
I mean, he wants to confront the town. We see him manipulating so that key breaks. They can't open that jammed door. He is forcing them to walk him through everyone in that general store to the cell so he could start spilling secrets.
Let me put a fine point to this. It takes 5 commercial breaks to get this man arrested. He will not go into a jail cell until we are well into the second hour.
At one point, Mike is like, hurry and open in this door. I'm freezing. I'm like, yeah, I'm freezing too. The scene has gone on so long. We've been out in the snow so long, waiting for some way to get Andre into his cell. Yeah, repetition is also really bad editing and pacing and not just repetition, Stephen King.
Yeah, I don't know why we can't get to it. I don't know why we have 2 nights of waiting for him to say what he wants.
This does feel like a Stephen King novel before it gets adapted into something of a more tolerable length into film or TV.
It feels like a Stephen King short story, is what it feels like.
Here's what kills me is Stephen King says again and again, and he said it yet again on the commentary, is that when he sits down and writes a story, he doesn't necessarily know where it's going. He may not have known what Linoge wanted himself when he's saying, give me what I want. He says that when he's writing his stories, he's on the same discovery that his readers are on because he wants to see where the characters take him. But he also kind of went against that by saying the story was partially inspired by The Lottery, a short story by Shirley Jackson. So did he have that as inspiration when he started page 1, or did that come to him when he's around page 200?
Well, here's the thing. I understand, like, when you're writing, you do want to be surprised, but that's a first draft. Like, then you've worked it out, and then you go back and you refine. And I gotta figure, if this is, like, going on television, there are execs that, like, are very commercially minded that would want to edit this down and give it direction and purpose.
Yeah, but I think, like Arnie said, that Stephen King's name was such at ABC that nobody's going to rewrite him. Nobody's going to give him notes. And so you let him do whatever he wants because he's given you 5 miniseries that have been ratings hits. Even though we all know the quality control there, not great.
I don't think I've recommended any of them.
All right, so yes, as this man is being walked to the jail cell, and it takes forever, he is passing by people and calling out people that I barely keep track of their names, but the town fisherman, he's growing marijuana. The woman that I called out that was, I think, a checkout girl, she had an abortion.
Which they can't say.
This is what tells me that this is a rigged game. That at the end, when the wife is freaking out that you always had it so that it was going to be Ralphie, he picks up this child. This grown man in handcuffs picks up a child and kisses him on the nose.
Talks about some, like, fairy bridge or something, some phrase I've never heard of before.
Oh, yeah. Like, there's so much wrong here. We wouldn't have blamed Mike if he put a bullet in this guy right away, but Mike is good. Mike doesn't do that. He doesn't overreact when strangers kiss his children. But this man has already decided, I'm taking this child, right?
Yes!
That's what I think. However, Stephen King says no.
Stephen King's wrong.
Stephen King says it could have been any of the 8 children. It just so happens.
You don't make Mike the protagonist if it's another kid that goes.
He's going to beg this kid to go in the closet. None of the other kids go in the closet with him. That is a lie. That is a lie. He does not date these children. He dates this boy.
You saying he's a pedophile too, along with the priest?
I'm saying that he is clearly grooming one of them, and only one of them, to be his apprentice. And he already knows within, well, in this case, it's been an hour. It's happening in real time, maybe. By the time he's walked into this jail cell, he knows exactly who he's taking and the damage that it's going to do, because he knows that Mike's sins don't compare. This is about hurting Mike, right? I want to break this guy that has no flaws and make him a broken person.
I mean, if this was Job, it would be about testing his faith, but Mike doesn't have any, again, they mention he's a deacon, but I don't feel like this is a story about a man's faith being tested.
Well, his faith in his community, certainly. If he's constable working for a low salary, he must love these people.
He loves keeping their dirty secrets about marijuana deals.
Yeah, well, he's going to be terribly hurt, so much so that he cannot live here anymore by the way that he sees them betray him. I'm just going to call it out. To me, it is a done deal. This evil man has decided by the first hour who he's taking, why he's doing it. He doesn't need to do anything in the middle. The middle of this story is worthless.
It's so inconsequential. Kat is going to murder someone, and they're like, go watch the kids by yourself. We don't care that you murdered someone.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that she murdered someone and then is left in charge of the children.
Shocking.
But they love their children. They wouldn't want this guy to take them. I'm like, they'd be better off. I'd rather some fang creep grab the child than leave her with Kat. But hey, let's talk about it because that's our job. Yes, the people that become under his sway as he's sitting in the jail cell doing a very bad impersonation of Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
They talked about hiring Anthony Hopkins for this role.
Not on 33 million, they're not.
Yes, exactly. And they decided that they would get a ripoff and he would be, I don't know. Again, I don't find this guy scary.
Is this someone?
He's in things.
Everyone in this is in things, but are they in something that people know?
You know him from lots of different movies in very supporting roles. Face Off, The Insider, Paycheck, Sum of All Fears, Shadow Recruit. He's done a lot of movies we've covered.
Yeah, some guy in the background.
A guy in the background who's usually a nefarious suit. And here, he's more or less a nefarious suit. He seems to enjoy calling people out, saying, I know you grow pot. I know you beat up gay people, and watching them squirm, watching them overreact. And again, I ask, wouldn't this story be more interesting if Mike did have a dark secret and still managed not to take the bait?
Yeah, I was waiting for that. This whole town to be turned on its head as all the secrets come out and they're confronted, and the constable would have the worst one of all, not cheating on a chemistry test. Who hasn't done that?
But if he had a dirty secret the same way everybody else has a dirty secret, what would set him apart? And what would that really add to the story?
I don't even know what this story is, so you're right there.
Why would we want to set him apart? Why does Stephen King think that the only person that's good in his stories is his main character? I don't understand that impulse. I don't know why when we have a priest, obviously he's going to be diddling kids. You know, like that just, I get angry, really, when I see how all these people are reduced.
Because it's so cliche.
Yeah, they've just reduced to the worst cliches. Let's start off with the pot farmer. He is on first watch. There's this guy named Alton. Sometimes he's called Hatch. He seems to be Mike's best friend. I think he works at the grocery store.
I think he's a deputy, isn't he?
Well, anyone could be a deputy, but I do think he works at the store.
He helped arrest Andre. He has the first shift with this supposed pot farmer who falls under a spell and is now writing this message that we can't get away from for the next 3 hours. Everyone will be saying, give me what I want, and I'll go away.
It's going to show up on their computer crossword puzzle.
Which is so funny because Stephen King kept writing about a computerized crossword puzzle in Bag of Bones. He must have really had computerized crossword puzzles on the brain because this was before the internet. This is taking place in 1989. MS-DOS had crossword puzzles? That's news to me. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying I never had heard of it.
I mean, how many different puzzles? You could just memorize them. That's no fun. They couldn't generate new ones, I don't think.
So let's talk about 1999 and 1989. If this were a movie from 1989, I could forgive that Cane that's slithering up in the rafters, dropping the noose down for this guy to kill himself. But oh boy, the worst mistake, the worst calculation of Stephen King and this miniseries on this budget is that they feel that they can make this man's cane the scary thing, that it's going to have this wolf head that they can CGI and bark and glow when it opens its mouth, and it's just, oh God, it's the worst.
And like I said, this just feels so spiteful, like Kubrick wronged me. This is good stuff. To have a lion statue or a wolf cane come to life is scary and good and should have never been cut from The Shining, and I will put it in this too. Like, it feels like he really wants that last word with Kubrick.
I didn't even think about the hedge animals when I saw this cane. I thought it was a kind of a cool design for a cane, but yes, the CGI in this is pathetically bad. But it's TV CGI in 1999. I mean, there's some CGI in here that you wouldn't even notice, like when he adds frozen breath to people talking outside. That was some CGI they did, and it looked great. But when you do things like this, it's not Langoliers bad. It's not that bad, but it's not good.
It can always be worse with King.
It's not that bad because this director is not as bombastic as Mick Garris. I think Mick Garris would give us more of the cane and it would talk maybe.
Oh, it'd be growling and biting people.
Yeah, he would go full cane. And here, I think this director knows it looks bad and minimizes. It's only in a couple shots where it's actually crawling around and doing things. But you just cut it. Again, I would argue, if this is Storm of the Century, he doesn't use a cane. He uses the wind, the snow.
Later on, he does that. People get lost in the storm.
Yeah, kill people with the storm because the storm is the killer thing. Why have a cane that you can't pull off with this CGI technology? Stupid. Meanwhile, some dude I'd never pay attention to at the firehouse takes an axe to his face.
Yeah, who is this guy? I do not know him. I don't know that we really saw him in any earlier scene, but he gets one of the cooler deaths if we were allowed to see it, which is climbing up on a chair, putting an axe in front of his face, and then falling forward so that his head gets cut in half.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens. We see the axe coming at the camera. We know it must have wound up in his face. Look, this feels like implied violence. This feels like a very small story, a chamber piece, and a play. Honestly, this could be staged on Broadway. The storm, there's no sweep to this. It could be happening in summer. It doesn't seem to matter that the storm is happening at all. And it is not very convincing. They use a blue filter, and yeah, there's a couple scenes. You're saying it's mashed potatoes. We don't have any disaster movie. Oh my God, the snow is breaking the roof, crushing people, getting lost in it. None of that.
It's going to knock down a lighthouse on night 2.
Yeah, we're going to get a lighthouse later. It's real riveting. But no, I noticed, like, there are so many shots where the composition are just, like, mid close-up shots on people's faces as they're having dialogues. Like, yeah, there's nothing dynamic. There's nothing horror or disaster film about this. It feels like a drama 90% of the time.
Yes, agreed with that. It really is a somber, talky courtroom drama. It feels like they're John Grishaming this, and this is a debate to be had between a town about morals.
Which is fine. Like, I'm going to kind of like it when it just becomes a debate, but I don't need that to take 4.5 hours to get there.
That's my problem is I think this would be fine at 2 nights. It doesn't have to be down to 1 night, but 3 nights is a lot because the second night, when I was writing the plot summary, I'm like, okay, the guy comes to town in night 1, causes a couple of suicides, gets arrested, and then in night 3, he's going to say what he wants, and that's going to lead to a conundrum. And I basically glossed over that there was a night 2 because there was not much that happened in it that was interesting.
The big reveal, and I know Bag of Bones came later, even though we just recently reviewed that, but...
Well, the book came before.
Okay. But I couldn't believe we were getting more, like, letters spelling something out. Like, as they see Linoge spelled in these little kids' building blocks, he's going to move them around, and it's going to be Legion. And guys, that's a demon from the Bible. There's a lot of them, and Jesus is like, hey, get out of that body. And he's like, no, I want to be in this body. And Jesus goes, okay, you could go in those pigs. And then those pigs just jumped off a cliff and died. And that was the end of Legion. So I'm like, is this how they're setting up this guy to die? Like, they're going to trick him somehow?
Not to mention, Legion had been used extensively. It was the name of the book, actually, in Exorcist 3.
It's one of the more popular demons in the New Testament.
And again, you get this Exorcist vibe to this. There's so many scenes of, I'm just imagining, Hannibal Lecter or Reagan, the little girl just sitting there and taunting. Just taunting people as they, I know you gay bashed that guy and don't you feel bad for it? And they try to shoot him, and then, magic powers make it so that Mike gets shot instead. 2 deaths happened in night 2, and I guess we should mention them. Yes, Checkout Girl was called out for having an abortion. The man that impregnated her is, I think, the bag boy.
Billy.
And he's not too happy about this.
It was also revealed he was cheating, though.
Yeah. They have a fight in this back room pantry where it looks like Linoge is going to be able to control him and make him, a can of apple juice suddenly has the cane on it. And, he's pantomiming, bring that can down on her head. When that fails, and I'm not sure why it fails.
Because he's a coward.
Or because he has too much moral integrity.
No, it's called out that he's a coward. I mean, maybe that's what makes him a coward is his moral integrity, but I did not take it that way.
Linoge says that, but I don't know that I believe that's specifically what did it.
I mean, he's just spitting truths all over the place. I don't know why you wouldn't believe him.
But suddenly, I'm a little teapot, and she comes back and beats him. I'm like, why? Why do that?
Yeah, why did they have to kill each other? Why does the old lady have to drown herself? I don't know why any of this has to happen.
I enjoyed that scene, though. It was probably my favorite death. The suicides, again, they're all off screen and everything, so there's not much to enjoy. It's a couple of middle-aged men killing themselves, but here, a wronged girlfriend, and she gets a splatter of blood on her face as she's beating down with the cane. It's the closest to a horror movie that I feel like we're going to get.
Right. And it's not particularly scary. It's quite predictable, quite frankly. And again, so much of this is familiar. I mentioned The Exorcist already. I wanted to scream, Dime! Why did you leave me alone, Dime? We have Robbie, everyone's least favorite character. He looks in the jail cell and he sees that mother that he neglected. That's straight up from The Exorcist, the first film. There were so many scenes about the old lady haunting the priest, and they're just almost doing it verbatim here. Like, it's embarrassing.
Look, Stephen King doesn't know what he's going to write or what movie he just recently watched that's going to make its way onto the screenplay.
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs, The Exorcist, and again, I would have preferred a little Armageddon.
Something to happen?
Look, I love disaster movies. We haven't covered many of them yet, but if you just want to have a storm like blow houses down and kill goofy people and watch all that stuff, that to me is endlessly entertaining. Make it campy, make it fun. I don't know why, again, it's so somber and brooding. It's not scary. I mean, none of this is working in terms of tension.
No, all these kids are happily tucked into bed, sleeping in the shelter as the storm is raging.
I would prefer to be tense. That's all I'm saying. And if this is it feels like warmed over Silence of the Lambs and Exorcist. I'm not hating what I'm seeing, but I'm completely underwhelmed by the first two nights.
Yeah, I'll agree that I'm not hating this, okay? I want to be clear. I think the performances are okay, and I like the world building that's going on. I wish we got to know the townies a little bit better. You mentioned the town manager, Robbie. I wish he had more to do other than just be argumentative. Whatever Mike wants, Robbie wants the opposite.
This guy was even against being in the shelter, which you have that in disaster movies. There's always one guy like, I'm not leaving my cabin even though it's built right on the volcano, and of course he's the first to die.
Yeah, I mean, we all got through the pandemic. We know there's people that would totally be like that.
But Robbie doesn't die. Robbie doesn't get it for being a jerk, and that's what you do in a disaster movie.
But this movie is a disaster, but not a disaster movie, perhaps.
Apparently not. Once we get to night 3, and we're already there, folks, unless you got something else to talk about the big reveals of night 2. Yeah, this is where we have a random character is found in the snow. They think it's this mannequin that was meant to mock Robbie, but in fact, it's some character that I couldn't even point out in a lineup. And we are looking for another character who was watching the lighthouse fall. And she comes back, Angie, with gray hair, talking about how she was flying in the air. This is where we get to the whole idea of people being imprisoned on wires.
What's so frustrating is she comes back. So the whole town has had this dream about that they've actually disappeared. And I thought that was going to be a big reveal and a great hook. Oh, they're all dead, or it's some kind of lost situation. I don't know. But it's just a dream. And then Angie comes back, and then we get this big monologue where she just tells us about the dream that we've already seen visualized. Again, the pacing, the filler, we got to stretch this out to hit that, I'm guessing, 2 hours with commercial breaks. It is frustrating.
Yeah, we should talk about the dream. That did happen, I think it is night 2. So there is something that is very important, is that while the people still don't know what's being asked of them, they have a communal nightmare in which they are marching like lemmings off the pier into the ocean and apologizing for failing Linoge, for not giving him what he wants.
Even though they've asked him what he wants and he will not say yet.
But again, the point is, the message being drilled in here is, if you don't do it, then you're all going to die. And again, I take him at his word for that. He will probably do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of like the first 2 nights, even though he won't say what he wants, he's got to prove he's as powerful as he's going to need to be in order to make the bargain that's going to be made. He needs to soften them up by having a few deaths and doing a few bad things. It would be nice if I believed he actually caused the storm, too.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of him just coming during a storm.
I thought he caused that lighthouse to fall. It was weird that everyone in the storm of the century, let's go watch the lighthouse fall. Like, you might die because there's a storm raging that's strong enough to knock down a lighthouse, but I'm not an islander, so what do I know?
Not only that, but it's a whiteout. You can't see 3 feet in front of you.
Yeah, they keep calling out how they can't see anything.
So, yeah, they're all standing there miles away from the lighthouse claiming they can see it. Well, then the snow ain't that bad. But let's talk about some factual things, because I do think this is an interesting detail that King tries to bring in here. In the middle of this dream, there is also a TV news report. And Colm Feore, I think that's how you pronounce this actor's name, the one playing our villain Linoge.
Yep.
Yeah, he is under prosthetics. He is at one point playing a preacher, and now in this scene he is playing a TV news reporter, And he brings up something that is true. This did happen. Before America was America and just an English colony, a bunch of Brits landed in modern-day Virginia around Roanoke, set up a colony, and 3 years later, the whole place was gone. And it remains this big mystery, what happened to them. The only thing they could find is this word Croatan. I only know about this, embarrassingly, because it was a season of American Horror Story. They utilized that, I think, season 6 to try and exploit this. And I looked into it then and went, oh, this is actually something from American history, that a whole town could disappear, I suppose is a good hook to tie into and a good reason to believe the threat that they're all going to die. Again, is he the guy that caused that community to go away because they didn't give him a child? He needed a child then? Again, it's cool to bring up real historical tragedies if you can make it make sense, but I don't really see the connection to what's going on here. Is his name Croatan?
I don't know. It's going to come back at the end. That's all I know.
How do they close that loop? If you're willing to bring it up, you got to close the loop. And I don't see that they really do. It's a dreamy newscast implication.
But it was something that caught my attention because so much of this feels like filler. I thought this was going to be a new revelation that they are dead. I'm like, oh, okay, here's an interesting twist. Like, I'm ready for something to happen. And then, no, it is just a dream.
So the night actually ends, the cliffhanger of night 2 that plays into what's going on in night 3 early on is that one of the kids, Mike's son, Ralphie, has been lured into the closet and we think, oh, he's been taken, but he comes out of it with a bag of stones. And we will find out that this is an important thing used. Weirding stones are what they're called. This will be an important way that societies decide complicated problems.
There's so much buildup to this bag of stones. They're like, don't open it. It's something dangerous. It's foreboding. And Molly's like, I'm going to do it. And then she dumped, I'm like, are those just rocks? And then you're going to have to wait an hour and a half for those to come back. Like another night of TV. Like I'd forgotten about them by the time they pull them out again.
And I'm on the fence. I'll be honest. I can recognize the quality is better. Tim Daly is better. There's some intrigue with bringing up Roanoke and what have you. Not hating this, not really liking this. But once the kids sing I'm a Little Teapot and grab the doggy cane, red arrow. It's over.
Really?
Absolutely. There's no way you can recommend a movie with a scene like that. It's over. You're dead.
It's the Superman scene that does it to me, but I get what you're saying because I definitely feel like there's an effect later on where I'm like, oh, I don't think I can recommend this anymore.
Yeah, when they're flying,
yeah.
I'm just watching through my fingers going, please stop. It hurts.
But I think I was in the same place as you. I'm like, this is TV King. Like, it's not going to be the best. At this point, I don't know where it's going, so I'm assuming all these threads are going to be tied together, and I'm like, yeah, this may be a recommend, and then I see the Superman scene, and I'm like, ugh, I don't know if I can recommend this.
They could masterfully bring all of this together, and it wouldn't matter, because you had kids clutching a CGI doggy cane and falling over and going to sleep.
All right, I didn't have a problem with that scene. I had a problem with the special effects. And I had a problem with the kids not being good actors.
Then why are you not having a problem with it? Sounds like you do have a very big problem with this scene. Bad effects and bad kid actors equals bad scene.
I love it when Pippa's like calling her mom a bitch to get to that cane.
Yeah, this is bad. I mean, and once they're doing the Peter Pan shit, it's like, stop. It hurts me. Like you are just torpedoing this.
I just thought it was an interesting concept that he would put all the kids in a coma.
Then just have them be asleep. Then have them unable to wake up. Do not do shitbag scenes like this that kill the movie.
We saw flying earlier when that woman was recounting her dream and she was flying and drop. Like, good. You got me those bad visuals. I'll remember those. It's going on with the kids. We can all pretend that's happening. Don't show it.
Why the flying anyway? Are they trying to make us think of Peter Pan? Because that's what I'm thinking about.
Because he could drop them and kill them. He could kill them in many different ways. I don't know why he has to be flying.
And then later, another lady's going to be floating around with candles in her hand. Why the flying? Why do this? You have 33 million. Be judicious. Find a thing that's actually scary and interesting and do that. Don't say, well, we have to do this because it's on the page, even though we can't pull it off.
Yeah, you could have just had him visualize it in other ways. The visual effects here are really poor, But what's got me is the story, especially when he says he wants one of the children.
Yeah, when he finally tells us what he wants.
Yeah, be clear, this is halfway into night 3.
Here's the thing is, I just expect he's going to be defeated. I mean, King in his stories, let's look at the ones we've recently discussed. Desperation with Tack, or go way back to The Stand with Flag. He has all these omnipotent beings, Pennywise, and they always find some silly way to defeat him in the end. The reason I say King is bad with endings is usually the way that they beat this omnipotent being is not very inventive. And so I just expect the town is going to band together and defeat this guy too. But no, the town is going to be like, yeah, he wants a kid. Now, admittedly, there's only 8 kids on the island. So for most of these people, they have no skin in the game.
They got nothing in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they should just walk out. It's not their conversation to be had. I guess he's threatening to kill everyone. But I have to say, once we get to this debate, this is why I'm like, just make this a 2-hour thing, because I'm kind of into this debate. Maybe because it's drama, there's tension, things that I've been missing the last 2 nights and half of this episode as well. But as bad as those flying effects were and the cane stuff, like, all that stuff is awful. Like, this was good enough for a TV miniseries where I'm like, am I going to recommend this? I'm enjoying this, and then I'm like, no, it's taken too long to get here. But, like, this stuff is good.
Is it?
For what it is, it's good.
I'll reveal my hand here, and maybe this reveals that I'm a terrible person. I don't think the town is awful for making the choice that it does.
No, I agree.
I believe we are to look at them the way Mike does and see them as confirmation of the horrible pedophile, rapist, adulterers that they are, that they're willing to sacrifice the few for the many. But so would Spock. That is what you do. Sometimes someone does lose so that greater numbers can win. And the only reason why this is tragic is if you believe the children are innocent and everyone else isn't worthy of living.
The parents I know would never agree to this. I can't think of a single person I know who would be like, yes, take my child.
Well, they're not saying that. They're saying one child will go.
One child or everyone goes. All the children die if one child does not go.
All of them die. We are all dead. Every single person in this town is dead unless one child, and this is a really important distinction someone makes, gets adopted. They're not going to sacrifice this child. They're going to have magic powers and live for hundreds of years, and probably, at the very least, they're not going to be babysat by Cat, the killer cane-wielding bitch. So I don't see this as killing a child.
I agree. You know, when you put it that way, it is a little bit more palpable. If it was child murder, I don't know anybody who would go for that. But that said, it's a hell of a rationalization to be like, well, it's like an adoption.
It is, though. Here's the thing. I'm with Mike because I don't trust this guy. What we are essentially having is a debate about whether you negotiate with terrorists, right? Do you believe people that do terrible things to have an honorable word, and when you give them what they want, they'll stop? Usually, in that circumstance, the mentality is you don't. You don't let the terrorist win. You go down, you stand your principles, and I don't know, if they all stood against them and they all died, would that make them better people?
That's why I needed to know more about that other town that disappeared in the dream. Like, what was their end? What did they think about their choice? I would have liked to know that.
Well, if you actually want to know where history is standing on that, it is believed that those people did not get wiped away in some magic whatever. They actually migrated and lived with Native Americans, so they lived on. But that's just, nobody wants history in this. We want lore. We want superstition.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, I want to know what the stakes are. Like, if everyone die, like, we all die, so, like, is it that they go to hell? Again, what's the threat?
We have a character whose mother is telling him, I'm going to eat your eyes in hell for eternity. So, yes, I guess is, if you're so horrible, you will be burning forever. Of course, you're going to burn anyway.
But they're going to go to hell eventually.
Yes. Again, I don't know what the stakes are. I feel like King is trying to set up something a little like Wicker Man, right? A demonized greater good. This society has decided that this horrible ritual is worth it, and we watch the terror in one man's eyes as it costs him, and his idea, everything.
I was trying to tie in Kat's abortion. Is this all a theme about killing your kids or something? I was really stretching, trying to figure out how this makes sense or what the point is.
Yeah, how does it apply? Because, horror and all movies really need to have some application symbolically to something that we might face. And the idea that we could be outnumbered by a decision that is horrible and hurts us, I get that to a degree. I understand Mike being indignant about not putting his child up for this. And I also understand this town for saying we need to have at least some of us live. And I believe this man is capable of killing us all. I believe that. So why wouldn't you have the parents of the children vote the way that they do? Isn't that democracy?
Yeah, and that makes Mike interesting finally at one point. After 4 hours or 3.5 hours, he becomes interesting because he stands against this town, and it does feel like, oh, I was the cop, you guys all trusted me, and now you're turning against me, and he feels again, this is where interesting emotions come out because drama actually happens. I am shocked to where this goes. This ends up being a very downer film from Mike's perspective.
But he's got a 1 in 8 shot of losing his kid. Unless you, of course, believe what I believe since 20 minutes in.
They even call it out.
Well, the wife says it's rigged after she sells it out. She was for it until it doesn't go in her favor. And that would probably be true of anyone. But again, Mike is part of his indignation is not that they're going to take a child. He knows they're going to take his child because this man has been grabbing, kissing, luring into closets Ralphie. It's in their face that this is quote unquote pick the stones, but we know he has magic.
I was surprised that Mike didn't volunteer, take some responsibility. I feel but have Molly do it so I could blame her for how this turns out. But I thought for sure, Mike, if you're Job, you got to step up and take responsibility and pull that stone, good or bad, black or white.
That's where Molly is, but I also respect that he doesn't want to play that. He's not willing to barter with his children. He'd rather die than let this man have his child.
He'd rather murder the entire town, too. That's what it means by him dying. Everyone dies.
That's true. He would rather kill them all. Well, to be more accurate, he would like everyone to agree with the sentiment, we would rather die than let you have our children. That's what he wants. He wants to live in a community where people are self-sacrificing, and these people are terrible. They do quote-unquote sinful things all day long, and then they protect their own selves and don't care about his kid.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a sign of how unified they were, that they do keep all of each other's secrets and, don't let that get out. I'm like, oh, maybe that's actually their strength. Again, I thought a lot about this secrets was going to be, the gist of the series, and, this was going to turn everyone against each other, and it gets dropped this third night.
Yeah, I wish there was more in-town fighting. Stephen King is good at that. Again, I go back to The Mist, where there were the different factions of people in the store trying to decide what to do with the monster. Here, I wish there was more argument, and it wasn't just, Mike is good and says no. Again, like you say, that could mean the death of everyone. But if you say yes, aren't you selling your soul? So there's different ways of looking at that.
Are you?
If you save the entire town -1, who's going to become a wizard, an immortal wizard.
An immortal evil wizard.
Good and evil, I'm postmodern. I don't believe in that. I believe in pragmatism. It is a pragmatic choice to say, I see more people benefiting by making this step than losing everything. And yeah, the moral high ground that you get to feel great until you step off the pier and go with Ralphie into your watery grave, I don't know how you win with that. I don't buy that. I'm with the town. I guess that's where I'm at. It makes sense what they decide. And while I'm sorry for Mike, that he's obviously set up to lose Ralphie, I know why they voted the way they did. It doesn't make them evil. It does not make this town contemptible.
Is democracy evil? Is that what this is saying?
Right. But interesting to note, though, I don't know if you guys heard this. There are 8 different stones, and I think it gets said that they represent 8 different continents. The black stone is Atlantis. So that was the 8th continent that apparently lost.
Did they say that?
I just heard that the stones were old when the earth was young, and then something about Atlantis, but I didn't tie that all together.
Yes, before Atlantis fell into the sea, the stones were old.
There you go.
But I don't hear anything about the continents.
There are 7 white and 1 black. 1 + 1 = 2 in my mind.
Anything to make this more interesting, sure.
Well, I mean, again, I see King tying it to quote-unquote real. To me, that's the interesting part of this, is the idea that this phantom could go around tempting different island communities. He's going to run out of islands pretty soon. There's not that many, but...
Samoa's next, Tonga. There's a lot of the South Pacific.
Fair enough. Watch out, Hawaii. But I get that it's painful. I mean, even though I don't agree with Mike, I understand why it hurts so bad. And I do feel bad for him when everyone gangs up and says, we're going to vote for this. And we all know, right? There's no mystery as to who is going to be left holding the Black Rock.
No, of course not. But the question I have, which is, I asked myself this, is it too obvious that Mike's son is the one that's stolen? Or is Mike the main character because it's his son that's stolen? If it had been a different kid, would that kid's father have been the star of the movie?
I don't know why Mike needs to be the star of this. This is about a town. It doesn't need a protagonist. It's got a bunch of townies. I think that would have been better. It would have thrown you off if he was just one of the faces in this crowd.
Maybe, but I think a point of view is helpful. I don't feel like I know enough of the characters that they all have interesting storylines. And Arnie, I guess the way I would put it is, if it had been Alton, Hatch, if it had been Pippa that had gotten taken, she's the only other kid that I can even name. I guess there's one little bully kid.
Dougie, I think.
Nobody would be mad, if that little bratty one got taken away. But yeah, if they had taken Pippa, obviously Alton would have been hurt.
I mean, we get a scene, we know what his reaction is, and I think this is to set us up for Molly's story, is he's like, oh, I'll just tell myself that it was a crib death. That's how we lost this child. Though, she seems a bit old for crib death. She's not even in a crib anymore.
Yeah. Good thing that mainlanders aren't coming over here and asking questions, because that would not fly. Anyway, I guess my point is, it is too obvious. It really should have been a surprise or a different... It would have meant nothing, right? If it wasn't his kid, all of Mike's protestations would have meant nothing if he got to have Ralphie and some other kid got flown away.
I'm wondering, I hear Linoge say something like, you're going to be punished if you're scared to reveal the rock you had, and Molly does go last, so is that the punishment? She gets the black rock? He's forcing other people to reveal their stone before her.
Yeah, but again, who's thinking that it's going to be anyone other than the parents of Ralphie? That's the problem, is that the story to me feels like an evil guy came to town, found the nicest guy, and said, I'm going to with you.
Yeah, that's Job. That's the book of Job.
Yeah, that as Mike interprets Job, that is what has happened to him, is that he was a good guy who had no flaws, and for that his sin is to lose. I have a problem with this word everything. He loses a child. He does not lose everything. It is a choice that everything else happens to him.
I'll say that, hot take on the Old Testament, I don't find Job that amazing. It's yeah, bad stuff happens because you can't control life, and it doesn't matter how good you are, bad stuff can still happen.
Right. Your child can die for lots of reasons.
Yeah. So I don't find that interesting. And then, yeah, I mean, he's going to lose his wife. He's going to have to leave. But you're right. He does make that choice to leave the town.
9 years and he hasn't built a new identity for himself. He goes to San Francisco, gets another job, doesn't have another relationship, can't have another kid, can think of not moving on ever.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Job, when he loses his family, when God's okay, you were faithful, he gets a new wife, he gets stuff back.
Again, forget the Bible. People rebuild from tragedy. People aren't destroyed because something terrible happens to them. They have the capacity for resilience.
Yeah, I was shocked by what a downer this ended up being. I did not see that coming.
But it's hard to say because I don't have kids, but as I have heard it told, the worst pain in the world is losing a child. I know that Ralphie's out there somewhere not dead, but to have that child forcibly taken away from you like that, you know what I wish is that I wish there was more scenes of Mike being a good father and less scenes of Mike staring at Linoge while Linoge is in a cell.
Mike's only important scene with the child is helping Pippa get her head out of a banister.
How does he do that? He's like, yeah, I'm just going to touch this, like, does some, like, fake psychology on her, and she just pulls her head out.
No, he pulls the banister apart slightly.
Okay, I missed that.
But look, I mean, it's a movie that doesn't have the time to establish. I believe the man loved his child intensely.
It has the time. It has 3 nights of 2 hours every night. It has time.
They don't have the time to establish how much he loves his child. I believe that on the onset. I believe that losing a child oftentimes can wreck marriages. I understand why he would hold that against Molly for bartering the child the way that she did, and that didn't save the marriage. I'm just saying terrible things happen to people. Really terrible, painful things happen to people. And 9 years later, they're able to have a life again. The idea that he feels like he could never have anything again, I'm glad she's getting therapy. I want him to get some therapy because that is false. That is not true. And how painful it must be to stay in this position that I've lost everything. I mean, he has a new job. He has a new identity. He lives in San Francisco. Who can afford to do that? I'm impressed with his life. But I get what you mean. Because if this had been a Mick Garris production, it would have ended with kissing and everything that this miniseries is missing.
You know, Linoge would have been killed, like getting hit over the head with his own cane or something.
I mean, it's bad enough that old age makeup that they put him in and the gray hair that CGI comes out of his head. It's not a great vision of evil they got going on. But by and large, this director doesn't go for the cheesiness that Mick Garris goes for. But I will say this, it does have an impact that this is more somber. I agree with you. It is the right instinct to leave with the idea that Mike has lost as opposed to happy family cuddling. That would be very sad.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that King went for this downer of an ending. It felt to me like early King, like Pet Sematary King, not like the King of the 90s. King is so big on happy endings most of the time. Most of the time, evil is defeated, or at the very least, it comes to a stalemate. That it went this way, I was shocked and impressed. I didn't see it coming. It actually subverted my expectations, and so for that, I will give it points.
Okay, but I'm a little teapot.
Well, no, I get that. And I get what you're saying, Arnie, because I'm like, oh, I did not expect this to be a tale about grief and like resentment. And so that's kind of impressive. What would have been more impressive if like these themes would have been set up and the previous 2 nights would have like led up to this and it didn't seem like it was a total swerve into left field or something, like all of a sudden.
What is his kid? Like when we have this Chinatown scene that supposedly is the thing that does teach him. He thought he knew, and then he really knew what he lost when he sees his kid with the snake, cat, vampire fangs. What does that mean?
He's going to be evil if you consider Linoge to be evil. I guess that's what he realizes that? Because he shows his fangs?
Is Linoge evil?
I think for 1999, Linoge is evil.
For 2024, Linoge is evil. He's like, I will murder this entire town. That is evil.
No. Evil is, let me have your kid and I won't kill you. By the way, I got your kid and I'm killing you. That's evil. The fact that he honored his word and more or less is just wanted one little child.
That's the thing. He's always spitting the truth.
This is not evil incarnate. This is not Satan. They have not been able to personify evil with this character. He seems like a monster, but a lesser one.
Yeah, I expected him to be the devil. Like some of the townies even think that he might be the devil, but then he's Legion, so I'm like, okay, he's some I got to throw the Bible out because it's not tied to that at all. Actually, he's just some dark, evil wizard that roams the earth.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think something about this coda implies this. Maybe he did kill all the town, right? Because we get the idea that Hatch's wife suddenly died of a heart attack at 35. Is that him?
Isn't this straight out of It, though, with Deary, where people, like, mysteriously die when they get to adult? I remember something like that.
I thought this was all the guilt of their decision. He said she died at a heart attack. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. Somebody goes out rowing on a boat and disappears. It's implied that it's suicide.
Robbie's wife. She was going to leave him anyway. Remember, she was going to take Donnie and go to the mainland. She never did. She killed herself.
Yeah, so I think this is all guilt eating them alive like a cancer.
We do hear Molly's version of Ralphie dying, that he got like lost in the snow and just ended up in the ocean and drowned. So yeah, maybe they're telling us that it's a heart attack when it's suicide and things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, there's also a happy ending here that, yes, because Melinda Hatcher is dead, now Alton Hatcher can marry Molly.
Molly gets a kid again.
Pippa, yeah, exactly. Who, again, she gave more attention to on the stairwell banister.
You are very good at rationalization on this, Stuart. To me, this is Stephen King, black and white, good and evil, Linoge is bad, and what happened to these people is a travesty, their own personal hell from the decisions that they made.
So let me understand this clearly. They made a terrible decision in your mind.
I think they made the choice too easily, and I blame writing for that as much as anything.
They only had 30 minutes.
Yeah, that was not in their control. You think that them deciding to put one of the 8 up for snatching makes them all repugnant.
Not necessarily that easy. I mean, they were all made repugnant before that with the gay bashing.
You're usually the one defending Spock. I don't know why you've switched sides now.
Yeah, you're saying I'm rationalizing this. To me, they made the decision that made sense for the community. It just didn't work out for Mike because Mike was set up to fail. And had Pippa gotten grabbed and Ralphie got to stay with Mike, who knows?
More important than whether or not this decision was the right one made by the town, it has led to a interesting conversation here, which makes me give kudos to King for a thought-provoking ending.
I mean, it's just the trolley dilemma made into a 3-night, 4.5-hour TV series.
You might be thinking about it. I think it's a very obvious choice. Obviously, if you're going to kill everyone, or you're only going to take one, take one. That's the answer. That is the obvious answer. It wasn't thought-provoking at all, for me.
Yeah, the problem is Mike's defense is like, but maybe if we just stand in solidarity, that will defeat him. He should have had a better plan, and then they reject that, then I would feel maybe a little bit more bad for him. But he didn't even believe in himself.
Yeah, let me ask that. My final thoughts on this, and my final defense of where Mike is at this. I think he believed he was the only one that couldn't be turned. We never have a scene of Linoge trying to puppet him. But my guess is Linoge could never get into his mind and make him lift a can of apple juice and crush anybody's head, right? Because he was good. And so if the other people were good, they wouldn't fall prey to this. It would mean that this town was good, that they could stand in solidarity. I think that's what he's trying to say. I want to have a community of good people that make great choices and love their children. Therefore, they won't be forced to walk the pier and fall into the ocean. He couldn't convince them to kill themselves.
Which I thought the solution was going to be, because I thought this was about secrets, was all the town just reveals their own secrets. Like they don't need Linoge, and that somehow takes his power away. I thought that would be the ending.
Yeah, I agree. If people have sinned, and we get one, the gay basher did leave his life savings to his victim. We see one bit of atonement there. I agree. That would be one way of showing the complicated nature of people and that there's goodness in these supposedly wretched people that Mike never should have taken $6,000 from to be their constable.
So Jakob, Stuart, do you recommend Storm of the Century? Jakob.
Again, I was kind of won over when we got to the dramatic stuff in night 3. Until I really thought about this and like, it took way too long to get here. Most of the stuff I've seen to get to this point does not matter. All those murders, you do a couple to get the town's attention, convince them that you're evil, and then you go to night 2 and wrap this up. You don't do that filler episode. And yeah, the effects are the effects. This is TV. I know I made fun of like the flying scene. It's bad. Like the cane, it's all bad, but it like I'm not going to damn it because of those, because this is TV, but it's fun to laugh at. It's not like, yeah, Langolier's bad or anything like that. And again, this cast, I don't know anyone except the guy from Wings, and maybe that's a benefit because I'm like, it feels like, you know, TV drama. No better, no worse than that. It feels like something you turn on ABC for 3 nights and watch. It fulfills all those things. And for a Stephen King TV miniseries, yeah, it's one of the better ones. I'm not going to deny it that. There are things that I enjoyed, but it is so maddening that so much of it feels like filler. Like, King was making it up without knowing where it was going. It feels that way, Stephen. And so I can't recommend it because, yeah, it's kind of unfulfilling. There's a lot of promise. There's a lot of interesting things I thought it was setting up, and then none of that actually happened. So, I don't know. It's kind of like a lot of the Marvel Disney Plus stuff that I haven't really enjoyed. Like, if you just want something in a genre that you like to fill up some time, this is one of the least offensive TV Stephen King miniseries, but I cannot recommend it because it wastes so much time. It does not need to be 4.5 hours long. It might make a good, solid film, but not at the length it is now, so it's a not recommend.
Stuart.
I've already said not recommend. And yeah, you put the doggy cane, the flying sequences, a 4-hour medley of I'm a Little Teapot. No way am I recommending this. But the thing I'd like to contemplate and give a little bit of floor space to in my final summation is there a recommendable movie somewhere in this bloat? I don't recommend Storm of the Century, but more judicious editing, more money for the disaster films, maybe a different song choice. Could this storm truly be thunderous? All right, so we got 2 nights of what I would call a pokey slasher flick. I don't think there's much there. Like I said, this character Linoge doesn't need to kill too many people to convince them of his power. So I feel like most of that is time wasting. It really comes down to night 3, which I basically boiled down to an ethical dilemma about whether it's wise to negotiate with terrorists, whether you should trust an abuser to keep their word, and would you be better off taking the moral high ground and dying for your principles? I get why Mike chooses what he does, because he's the good guy, he's the self-sacrificing guy. I'm a pragmatist. I'm with the community. And I don't believe the community did this to hurt him. They didn't know it was going to be his kid. So I don't think it's really set up to be this Wicker Man tragedy that I think King was aiming for. I think it's miscalculated. Honestly, I think King was trying to tell a story about the evil greater good and how it hurts the individual, and he just didn't find the right circumstance. It's just not the right villain. The hero's boring, and I don't believe that the punishment fits the crime.
The deal is too good at the end.
That's what I mean. Like, he honors his word. He takes the kid and he goes. The kid's still alive 9 years later. So I don't think that this is evil that they were fighting. It was some kind of monster doing something I'll never understand, but I do not understand that Mike has lost everything. I don't buy that. I don't believe that. He lost his family. He lost his wife and his kid, and he couldn't stay in that community. But I see that he is rebuilding his life, and I don't buy that this is such a tragic circumstance. And nor do I feel like it's really that well connected to Roanoke and Croatan. So in the end, I think what I'm really saying is, no, this is a firm not recommend. It really doesn't work, no matter how long it is, no matter how much money you throw at it. It's just not a particularly good story.
Now, I want to say, in terms of Stephen King television miniseries, this is gold. This is one of the absolute best Stephen King miniseries we have watched so far.
Agreed.
I could not disagree with that.
Yeah, which, again, have I recommended any of them? The Salem slot made by TNT with Rob Lowe, I think, is the only one I recommended.
But does being the best of a bad lot, and I still think The Stand is better than this, but being one of the best of a bad lot, is that recommendable? Here's the thing I can say. After I watched Night 1, I was interested in what Night 2 would bring. The mystery of Night 1 had me asking, who is Andre Linoge? What are all his powers? Yes, we've only seen a couple of suicides, but I watched this over the course of 2 nights, not 3, and one of the reasons I watched it in 2 nights is as soon as Night 1 was done, I was really interested in what Night 2 had to hold. Night 2 had a couple disappearances, it had the good murder, it had a suicide of an old lady, but it mostly was biding time. It was where the storm started to hit, but it didn't really do a whole lot. But yet, at the end of the night, when they're talking about Roanoke Island, and we're seeing Linoge in the fat suit, I'm like, I really do want to know what Night 3 is. Is everyone going to walk off a pier? What is going to happen? How are they going to defeat Linoge now that he's out of prison? What will happen? So were I watching this on ABC, I would have returned from night 1 to night 2. I would have returned from night 2 to night 3.
You're skipping Friends to watch this.
Yeah, I'm skipping Friends. All right, I'm taping Friends because I never missed Friends. But night 3 is the best night because that's where it brings in the moral conundrum. And it asks me a question that I'm not as ready as Stuart just to write off as an easy answer there. I think that a lot of parents would have problems with that, not be able to just immediately go, take one of the kids and it might be mine. So honestly though, it is way too long. This should have been 2 nights. So I was really on the fence on whether or not this is recommendable given how long it is. And I think we've all said that. It is just too long as it is. Now, Jacob thinks there's a good movie if you shorten it. Stuart thinks that it's not. But the fact that they go for the down ending, the fact that Linoge wins and walks off into the night and then Ralphie gets snake teeth, I think that's a nice choice. I actually really enjoy that as an ending. Night 3 redeems the nothingness of night 2, and night 1 wasn't bad. I'm giving this a weak recommend. It's not like, oh my god, you gotta see this. I don't understand the people who say this is one of King's best screen adaptations. However, it's certainly not one of his worst. Just the fact that I'm giving it a recommend puts it in the top quarter?
I flirted with maybe recommending it until I really went over it, but I get what you're saying. It is one of the lesser offenses when it comes to TV Stephen King.
I actually keep a running chart, and even though I know it can't be exactly accurate, I put this at number 37, which is better than half.
What is that between?
You know, it's right around The Boogeyman, that recent Boogeyman, The Dark Half, Secret Window. It's this kind of boring thing that's very predictable that I didn't hate. Projects that just don't have a lot of heat to them. Not making a snow joke. There's just not much about this that's that exciting.
But can we keep up excitement for Stephen King in general? I gotta say, it's a slog. And when we get back to Stephen King, it's not as bad as when we get back to the video game retrospective series, but it's certainly starting to feel like a bad omen when I see Stephen King's name on a film.
I don't know. You guys gotta do Knuckles. I feel like we've taken a lot of Knuckles with the Stephen King stuff.
I looked. When was the last time I genuinely liked something as opposed to like, meh? Gerald's Game. And that was about 15 movies ago.
I liked Green Mile.
I gave it a recommend. Again, that was one of them kind of like, meh, it's all right.
An enthusiastic recommend. Gerald's Game was the last one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I genuinely think Gerald's Game is an interesting movie. And it's been a while since I could say that. But I will say this. Salem's Lot is my favorite Stephen King book. And that has been announced this fall sometime. I don't think it has a date attached to it yet as of this recording. But October, November, we will see this shelved James Wan produced Salem's Lot remake that's not going to theaters. I guess it's going straight to Max.
How long has this been on shelves?
3 years.
I feel like you've been talking about it like it's coming any day now for a while.
And something I have not talked about, but just learned about, the best story in Skeleton Crew, The Monkey, not The Mist. The Monkey was the one that I liked. That was the one that made the cover. They have made a movie of that, and they have a cool director, a cool cast. I'm excited whenever that should come out. It could be this fall as well.
That's not the Dave Patel Monkey Man. That's something different.
Yes. This is a little monkey wind-up toy that clashes its cymbals whenever someone's going to die.
Oh, I remember that cover. It scared me as a kid.
Yeah, that really made me scared of those Monchichi-looking monkey toys.
And if neither of those appear, the next Stephen King, chronologically speaking, is, I don't know about this one, it's a drama again. Again, he was doing a lot of that in the 90s. Anthony Hopkins in some kind of Vietnam War coming-of-age thing called Hearts in Atlantis.
I know of it, have never been compelled to read it or see it, but I'll be doing both before we get to that review.
In the meantime, a horror movie that I am super stoked about, this Friday, part 2 of the X trilogy that Ty West and Mia Goth are making, maybe my favorite entry, Pearl.
Maxine isn't out yet, so maybe there's one you'll like even more than Pearl.
I said maybe. I'm just saying, I really like both of these movies.
Would you say you're over the rainbow for Pearl?
Perhaps. Wizard of Oz jokes are very fitting when we're talking about this one. And for next Tuesday, a series that is celebrating its 30th anniversary, Speed. We're going to cover Sandra Bullock in a bus and then Sandra Bullock on a boat, because there were two of them, believe it or not.
Yeah, cruise control, man.
Because nothing's faster than a cruise. That's when you think of Speed.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting Now Playing if you are a donor and can join us for those X reviews. And until next week, why don't you go on home, Tess? I'll lock up.
You've done a hard thing, my friends. And despite what the constable may have told you, it's also a good thing. The right thing. The only thing, really, that loving, responsible people could have done under the circumstances.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Now Playing, and we hope you've enjoyed the show.
Well, I think I handle that pretty well, don't you?
Like a diplomat.
Come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com to hear our reviews of other Stephen King movies, such as Carrie, The Shining, Children of the Corn, Cujo, and dozens more in our archives section.
Remember what I said, Mr. Anderson. And when the time comes, we'll talk.
Also on our site, hear reviews of other films such as Maniac, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Saw, Riddick, Friday the 13th, the Avengers films, Star Trek, and more. Find hundreds of movie review podcasts at NowPlayingPodcast.com and come back each week for another new movie review.
Let's take another ride, all right?
Support from listeners like you help keep Now Playing operating.
Where's your wallet? Where's your wallet?
You can find a link to donate using PayPal at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
If we have something that this man Linoge wants, why doesn't he just take it?
I don't think he can. I think we have to give it to him.
You can also help out Now Playing by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. A link to Now Playing's iTunes listing can be found at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
But the thing of it is, you see only the bad, none of the good.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
Listen here, you get a little big for your britches.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
And thank you for being such a good helper today, Buster.
Now Playing is edited by Santiago and Arnie.
Because that's what hell is all about, Robbie. Repetition.
Now Playing credit narration by Brock.
Talk slow and loud. Come back on.
The film discussed in this podcast is the property of its respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
So now you've done a whole lot of my thinking for me too now, huh?
You obviously haven't been doing much for yourself these days.
The opinions expressed on Now Playing are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the opinion of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Tell the truth and shame the devil.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2024. All rights reserved, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Ladies and gentlemen, residents of Little Tall, I thank you for your attention to my needs, and I now declare this meeting at an end, with a suggestion that the less you say to the outside world about our arrangement, the more happy you are apt to be.
This aired on a Sunday night, a Monday night, and a Thursday night, which I'll just have you know in the 90s, you're going up against Friends and Cosby.
That's the best night of TV.
Not Cosby, but yes, Friends and ER and...
He wasn't on the air then?
Cosby? No, I'm pretty sure he's done by 99.
It went off the air at like 91.
Okay, well, I didn't watch network television in the 90s.
I could tell.
Yeah, I didn't watch, any of that. But by and large, this director doesn't go for the cheesiness that, Mick Garris just can't stop himself from going to.
You almost said Mick Jagger.
I almost did. That Mick Garris goes for. But I will say this.